I'm going to ask you a question. What is music to us? For some, it's nothing more than something to break up the silence of a room. For others, it's a passion, it's a way to give life more meaning. And for Sufjan Stevens, it's a way to express grief. In the years following his 6th studio LP, The Age of Ads, Stevens' mother, Carrie, passed away from stomach cancer. Now don't get me wrong, this would be traumatising for any person. Losing a family member is one of the hardest things we have to endure, but for Sufjan, things were different. At the age of 1, he and his siblings were abandoned by his mother, and he never really had a mother figure in his life until Lowell entered the picture. This being Lowell Brahms, the eventual stepfather of Stevens and the man who went on to found his record label Asthmatic Kitty. Brahms insisted on reconnecting mother and children, and between the ages of 5 and 8, Sufjan had contact with Carrie, but she was wrought with psychological and drug-related issues. His childhood was relatively stable, but it wasn't easy. After Carrie's death in 2012, Sufjan needed to grieve. But how do you grieve someone who abandoned you? How do you grieve a woman for whom you have so many conflicting feelings? The answer, for Sufjan Stevens, is to write Carrie and Lowell. Now, I feel like I could go into detail about every piece of this album because, well, it's a masterpiece. But I wanted to focus on one particular song, a song that explores the feelings that Sufjan was experiencing when he was at his mother's side in her final moments. After years of neglect and animosity, suddenly everything was coming to an end. Sufjan wanted to write about this, but how do you possibly write a song about something like this? Well, you write 4th of July. Fourth of July is the 6th track on Carrie and Lowell, the exact centre of the album, and it's the song that convinced me that Carrie and Lowell is one of the classics of all time. From an objective point of view, there isn't really much to it. There are only 2 real instruments, an electric piano and this gorgeous airy synth that permeates the entire 4 minutes and 39 seconds of the song. But the song is written this way because it draws attention to the lyrics. There are times when you want a certain instrument to take centre stage, like a guitar solo or something similar, but there are also times when the only thing you want your audience to pay attention to is the vocals, the lyrics, and the mood they portray. This is one of those songs. Going against the norm of having a song structure of just verse, chorus, 4th of July simply has 6 verses, utilising the classic call and response technique that has been a staple of Western music for centuries. Set during the last time they would ever speak, the verses alternate between the perspective of Sufjan and his mother. One verse will explore Stevens' inner thoughts at the time, while the next will be an interpretation of some of the things Carrie has said to him during her last night on Earth. It's very musically pleasing to hear such a simple back and forth of melody until you listen to the lyrics and realise just how sombre and painful they are.
The evil had spread like a fever ahead. It was night when you died, my firefly. What could I have said to raise you from the dead? Oh, could I be the sky on the 4th of July?
Sufjan struggles to articulate his thoughts. He wants to bring his mother back from the brink, despite everything that's happened in the past. He wonders if he could light up the night sky like a firework, an obvious metaphor for bringing life in a place of death. Now, I wanted to write this video for this next verse alone. The second verse from Carrie's perspective, featuring Sufjan's trademark wonderful lyrics. I genuinely think that these are the best 5 lines ever put to paper.
Did you get enough love, my little dove? Why do you cry? And I'm sorry I left, but it was for the best, though it never felt right. My little Versailles.
You can feel the remorse that Carrie has for leaving her children, despite the fact that she knows that growing up with a bipolar and schizophrenic mother would be hugely detrimental to their own mental health and well-being as well as their upbringing. She knows that it was wrong to leave her children, but she feels she had no choice. She then refers to Sufjan as Versailles, the palace near Paris, a gorgeous metaphor. She knows that her son is a beautiful person filled with art, just like the palace at Versailles is grand and wonderful. It's the intense intimacy of these lyrics that defines 4th of July, and Carrie and Lowell as an album. You feel the grief pouring from every word, the confliction in Sufjan's emotions. It would almost be uncomfortable to listen to if it wasn't so beautifully arranged and produced. There's an effect on the vocals that makes them sound almost quad-tracked, but because of how soft Stephen's vocals are, it just helps to make a wall of sound that is apparent but not overwhelming. It's genius production. The song ends with a double verse for Carrie. She asks Sufjan to do what he can with his life, to live it to the full, because she's come to realise that it's all over too soon and you're left lying on your deathbed. She asks him again why he cries and refers to the Tillamook burn, in which 350,000 acres of ancient forest was destroyed in a forest fire in rural Oregon. In the time since, new saplings have begun to grow and the ecosystem has started to recover. Carrie reminds Sufjan that while this pain and devastation is not something to ignore, soon it will be easier to bear and his life will continue.
Well, you do enough talk, my little hawk. Why do you cry? Tell me, what did you learn from the Tillamook burn or the 4th of July? We're all gonna die.
The song finishes with the refrain of the main motif.
We're all gonna die.
Something I really like here is that as the vocals get more high-pitched, Sufjan softens his consonants in an effort to make the outro of the song feel like it's fading away, the way that Carrie faded away that night in the hospital.
We're all gonna die.
It's a small touch, but it goes to show the care put into every detail of every song on Carrie and Lowell. After one last refrain, the song stops, and we're left trying to contemplate the barrage of emotion we've just experienced. It's wonderful. Sufjan Stevens writes grief in a way not many can. His lyrics are personal and immediate, but they are not overbearing. His instrumentation is bare bones, but it is still interesting. And throughout, he manages to portray a sense of guilt, a sense of anguish and sadness, whilst not making it so dark that it's difficult to listen to. 4th of July is just one song on an album of classics, but the way it is written is so perfect that I find it impossible not to wonder just how he manages to do it. You would never wish this grief on anyone, but you feel thankful that something spurred Sufjan Stevens to write a song that is so beautiful. And who knows, maybe we all have someone who is a little Versailles, inspiring us to make something truly beautiful.
The only thing that keeps me from driving this car, half-light jackknife into the canyon at night. Signs and wonders, Percy is aligned with a skull.